In the very heart of a dense and gloomy forest, where shadows danced beneath the canopy of ancient trees, lay the mysterious village of Ebenholm. Its inhabitants, bound by age-old traditions and superstitions, lived in perpetual fear of the unknown that lurked beyond their small world. Among them was a boy named Elias, whose curiosity and thirst for adventure often led him to forbidden places. One day, while he was playing in the forest, his eye was drawn to an old, dilapidated hut hidden among the undergrowth. Unable to resist the temptation, he cautiously approached it. Inside, the hut was dark and dusty, the air heavy and stale. Elias slowly made his way through cobwebs and scattered objects, his heart pounding in his chest with excitement and fear. Suddenly, a strange sound reached his ears, coming from a far corner of the hut. He froze, his body tensed. Slowly and carefully, he approached the source of the sound and discovered an old wooden chest covered in a thick layer of dust. Curiosity overcame fear, and Elias reached out to open the chest. The lid creaked and slowly lifted, revealing a horrifying sight. Inside lay a bloodied cloak and a headless doll. Elias recoiled in horror, his eyes wide with fear. At that very moment, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was a headless man, his body wrapped in a black cloak, and where his head should have been, there was only emptiness. The headless man raised a bloodied sword and moved towards Elias. Elias screamed and rushed to the door, but it was locked. He desperately tried to open it, but to no avail. The headless man slowly approached, his empty eye sockets staring straight at Elias. Elias fell to his knees, begging for mercy. But the headless man was merciless. He raised his sword and brought it down with force upon Elias's head. In the village of Ebenholm, people whispered about the dreadful fate of the boy from the mysterious hut. And ever since, the headless man became a legend, terrifying the inhabitants for many generations. But Elias's story didn't end there. His spirit remained tied to the village, unable to find peace. At night, he roamed the forest, his headless figure instilling terror in those who dared to cross his path. One night, a group of young people decided to venture into the forest to test their courage. They had heard the stories about the headless man, but didn't believe them. They entered the forest, laughing and teasing each other, but their mirth was short-lived. Soon they heard strange sounds coming from the darkness. They froze, their hearts beating faster. Slowly and carefully, they approached the source of the sound and witnessed a horrifying sight. In front of them stood the headless man, his body wrapped in a black cloak, and where his head should have been, there was only emptiness. The headless man raised his bloodied sword and moved towards the young people. The young people screamed and started to run, but it was too late. The headless man caught up with them one by one, his sword mercilessly descending upon their heads. Ever since, no one dared to enter the forest at night. The legend of the headless man lived on, warning the inhabitants of Ebenholm that the mysterious forces hiding in the forest should not be underestimated. And to this day, on the darkest nights, one can hear the whisper of the headless man echoing through the forest, his empty eye sockets staring into the void, and his bloodied sword thirsting for new victims.